This is the cutest episode of 100 Proof we will be ever doing.
Listen, well, here's the deal. Mao told us, for those who are watching, that we were supposed to, by the way, welcome to 100 Proof, everyone. Your weekly podcast dedicated to all things.
Let's go.
NFTs. So, Derek, Mao was giving us shit because we were wearing baseball hats the entire time. We wanted to, look a little bit more presentable, a little more professional. And we would pick matching beanies.
We had to do it, dude. We had to go there. I saw you got something down there, dude. Is that the Squiggle Marfa beanie?
There we go.
Look at that thing.
I'll do that
dude.
one. That's a little bit more on brand too. With the,
so you're gonna have to explain where you got that for the audience, because these are pretty select. I don't see these floating around very much.
Yeah, this one actually I did pick up in Marfa in Texas. So we had that. For those that haven't been, definitely pay attention next year when they throw their annual get together in Marfa, because it is. I mean, it's so much fun. We have a blast out there.
It's the best.
It's the best. So, if you want to go to Marfa, Texas, it's you have to fly in and then drive for a few hours. And once you're there, though, it's very remote. They have a little Art Blocks house. There's like a dozen or so artists that show up. Tom Sachs was out there last time. Dimitri's are always out there. Tyler Hobbs was he there this last year?
He was.
Yeah, Tyler was there.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right. Because I think he was on the fence of whether he was going to go or not. But just all the great
It was a great
artists.
crew. Super great crew.
Yeah.
We got these amazing warm souvenirs as a thank you, which was awesome from the Art Blocks team. So I rock my Squiggle beanie all the time.
And by the way, I got your care package in the mail from someone on your team.
Did you get the glitch hoodie?
The glitch. Yes. Well, not the hoodie. I didn't know there was a hoodie.
Oh, dude. What?
Don't salute until you send me a hoodie. You saluted too early.
All right. My B. We got you, Kevin. I
got a white t-shirt and some stickers.
Zach, if you are listening to this, we need to get the man a hoodie. All right. Let's make it happen.
Zach was very nice and sent me some good stuff. So, let's talk about that real quick, because I think that'd be kind of fun. One of the things I was delighted to hear is that you opened a studio out there with Glitch.
Yep.
But I'm curious, like, what are the hours of operation for something like that? Is it only because Marfa is kind of like, I can't imagine you have a lot of people walking in every day.
It's true. So I think only about 1,500 people or so live in Marfa throughout the week, year round. And then it expands on the weekends and during big events, and you start to see a much bigger flood of people come in, but pretty small in terms of just like day-to-day traffic. So the truth is like, to start, it's been very limited hours. We've got some stuff planned, and we've been working through this internally and thinking through strategy about how we want to approach the physical space and the digital space of Glitch here in the new year. And we've got some cool stuff we're cooking up around curation and finding really great objects to talk about and storytell around. And we're working with a gentleman named Malta over at on the Bright Moments crew to kind of help with some of that curation and storytelling, along with my wife Maddie. But we've got a team we're assembling internally to start doing some more day-to-day stuff and month-to-month stuff, both in person at the gallery and then also on the internet. That's the beauty of the space.
I always thought it was going to be something that was more kind of opportunistic based on what was going on in Marfa. Because, there's massive events that happen there several times a year. Was that kind of the thinking, like, hey, let's do this where it's, if there's enough traffic here, let's open it up. And then, Quantum is, another space down here in Santa Monica, right around the corner from here. And they did a very similar thing. But, I think it's a hard thing to educate people about NFTs. Well, they tried to sell NFTs there. And,
yes.
I think Justin would tell you, and the team over there would tell you, it's tough right now,
Yes. Yeah, I would say differentiate in a couple of ways. The first, so to your original question, like 100%, we plan on having activations and exhibitions and live events there throughout the year. There's the Marfa Invitational, which is coming up shortly. The Chinati Festival is always just a time when traffic floods in. And then, of course, Art Blocks events, as they continue to happen throughout the year in Marfa, we'll definitely be having a live presence there. I think because the focus of Glitch Gallery is so educational and not, there is no like monetization component, we're really just kind of focused on storytelling and activations around storytelling for educational purposes. And so I would say the stuff we've got in kind of the hopper right now that we're working through will mostly be around education. And I think the beauty of the space physically, but then also the fact that we're in a space that's digital, is that you can kind of do that storytelling in real time in Marfa, but then also on the internet 24/7. And so I would say we'll hopefully have something to share here in the next month around kind of how we're going to be envisioning Glitch's participation in the evolution of digital art and digital objects and this industry we're all in. But it'll be around kind of the physical digital intersection, which I'm pretty pumped about.
When I'm curious with Collab Currency and what you've built there, and just having just a phenomenal portfolio of companies in Web3. It's just like it truly is second to none. Like, you guys are so native. It's ridiculous. It killed me. I remember we were first getting into Web3 over at True, and we were talking about, how far in we go, like how much capital do we deploy into this? And I pulled up your fund page, and this is before we knew each other well. And I remember seeing, your fund page like listed you guys as CryptoPunks. And I'm like, oh man, these guys get it. Damn it. Like, they're like so on top of it. It was cool. But have you announced your most recent fund size? Is that
we actually haven't yet. That will be announced imminently. So probably in the next 30 to 45 days, there should be a release around our newest fund. And that will be Fund 3. Really excited to announce it. We've already been investing out of that fund, and we've got some cool stuff in there that I'm excited to talk about.
Do you buy NFTs at the fund level? Like,
that is a great question. That is a great question. We're really getting into it, Kev.
Well, I just like, we always talk about the projects and what's going on, but like, you have such a fantastic portfolio, and I'm just curious what you're doing.
Yes. So to date, I would say my participation with the actual underlying objects, so the NFTs, whether it's art or collectibles or gaming assets or whatever it may be, has really just come from me. So like I am personally, I own a lot of these objects. The fund has primarily focused on venture scale opportunities. So finding the best founders working on the biggest problems from like a platform and venture perspective and backing them, and not necessarily investing in NFTs themselves. Mm-hmm. We have invested in a few over the last few funds. But as it, relates to the core strategy, it's really been on venture opportunities. So things like Art Blocks and Super Rare and Quantum and Bright Moments and things like this. I will say Fund 3, we have opened the aperture in terms of like, what are the possible surface area for venture style investment to include digital objects themselves. And so I expect Fund 3 will have some exposure to the underlying objects in this space. I'm not totally ready to talk about what that looks like from a fund level yet, but certainly it will be part of the strategy, as I expect it will be part of the strategy for many other venture funds here in the future.
Are you buying Wolf Game NFTs?
So I am.
We talked about this last week.
It's true. So I am at a point right now with Wolf Game. I actually was following that project very early on at the very beginning. I owned plots and some of like the assets within it. And I would say just like my interest level kind of fizzled out there for about 6 months. It's unquestionable that, it's like right back in prime time and folks are talking about it. And so what I've just been trying to do over the last couple of weeks, after chatting with folks who are very deep in that ecosystem, like G and Eric, Snowfro and a few others who have like recently really started to dig back in, is trying to educate myself.
You saw what he did, right?
I saw that he
sold a punk, a one attribute.
He sold a punk. That's right. And so to answer your question, I've been trying to educate myself and really understand the surface area there a bit better, but it's been interesting to see the revival there and see people very excited about that. Where are you at with Wolf Game, dude?
Man, I wish I had the time, to be honest. Like, I just wish I had the time.
We're both pretty busy.
I was just working. I was working, and I have to spend the entire day. It's nighttime now. You can see outside here, and I spent the entire day working on Proof and Moonbird stuff. And then I remember I was sitting down. I was having a sweet green for lunch. It was a fantastic company, and don't own any shares or anything. But actually sitting down, and I pulled up the Wolf Game website, And I was like, okay, I'm gonna learn. And I just like the music started playing, and I'm like, what am I doing? Like, do I want to go down this rabbit hole?
Totally.
I'm down so many rabbit holes, and then you have to get yourself out of the rabbit hole, and you go down another one. I just, that do not mint that you got me into. I minted now the second mint of that. The what? The chapters.
The chapters.
Yes.
Yeah, so we actually, we have someone who is in the proof community who is deeper on that project than I think anyone else. We're going to have to do a show exclusively on that project to figure out what the hell is going on at some point.
Yes.
Because I feel like there's more than meets the eye, but I'm also not totally convinced that there is. And I think we just need an expert on Do Not Mint to come and sit down with us for an hour. And we just need to go through it.
You were shilling your bags to me on Do Not Mint.
True.
You have to be the expert. You
play the Mal needs to play the tape, because that is not what happened a year ago. What happened a year ago was like, I just came across this thing. It's kind of interesting. Definitely don't buy it. But it is like the longest rug of all time. And I'm
longest rug.
What's interesting is like the dude, whoever is behind that project, I'm not like, there's no money that's been generated. Like he's just been putting content, or he or she has been putting content out for the better part of a year, every couple of weeks, without fail, not selling a single thing. And part of me is like super skeptical. Like, are we just all kind of like walking blindly down this tunnel where like we're going to have to throw, a couple $1,000 at something here pretty soon? Right. Or is there, I don't know, is there some sort of just like public storytelling that this person is all about, and we're just all along for the ride, and it's kind of like a fun rug?
I want to believe that it's like Banksy's first project or something. Like,
wouldn't that be awesome?
That like, wouldn't that be awesome? And like just like somebody that's just like playing the long game,
That it's basically why I'm still diverting some attention to the project, and I think why a couple of folks in Flamingo and Neon and a few of the DAOs are interested. It's like at some point, like something has to happen. And I think we're all just kind of like,
The TLDR, to catch people up, capsules, literally project Do Not Mint, you idiot, Do Not Mint, like 0% royalties. So the person that put it out there is not making anything back on the secondary sales. I bought a bunch of them for way more than Derek did. So I probably bought some of yours, but I bought a bunch after you got excited about it, because I don't know, we get excited. We pump each other up when we talk about this type of stuff. And then recently they said, okay, you can take the capsule and you can mint a chapter. My buddy who's in proof, that's really deep on this, went into all this stuff, and he's like telling me about all the chapters, and apparently some of them are like written by AI, and it's clear that they're AI, and then some of them might be written by humans. And so the crazy people are going in and applying AI detection algorithm against all the chapters and trying to figure out, of the ones that aren't written by AI, do they mean anything if you add them together, or, so there's just like a lot of sleuthing that's going on around this project, which I love. I think it's a lot of fun.
It is fun.
But
also a lot of work for two guys that have a booked calendar. So I'm super excited at some point to maybe have some of the folks in that community come on and kind of walk us through from the very first step what the hell is going on with Do Not Mint.
When you think, just to flip flop back and forth real quick, when you think about Wolf Game and what you were into in the early days with that, is there like why is Snowfro buying Wolf Game stuff? Why is Seed Phrase, like some of these big, really well known, influential players in the space buying? Do they see it as an investment opportunity, or are they just playing? They must see it as some type of investment, right?
So I wish I knew. I don't know the exact answer to this question. I can tell you why I was interested at the very beginning. My view is, and I think we're seeing this with projects like Do Not Mint, we're seeing it with Wolf Game, we're seeing it with others. You are able to build a gaming-like experience using blockchains, using digital assets, that even if the graphics or the UX isn't superb, you're still able to create an experience that's fun and financialized and interesting and keeps people attention, and mini economies of which the game can run, even using just text and photos and storytelling. And I think we've seen time and time again that if you pair some of those storytelling like primitives with blockchain primitives, even if you don't have a fully fleshed game that people can play like you would on a console, or on, that you would download from Steam and so on and so forth, you can actually create something that people want to play together. And I think Wolf Game kind of cracks that. I think they've created a system by which, cohorts have formed and clans are, working together to, win these competitions and be a part of something that's bigger than themselves. And they're using blockchain rails to do it, which is pretty exciting, right? Like that these types of experiences can affect this many people, and even given the crudeness of like what the UX looks like, it's very illuminating because you can start to see a path towards very rich ecosystems or economies getting built out of this technology eventually. When you pair some very well-resourced individuals and some creativity with some of like the early kindling that we're seeing here.
Yeah. I'm always curious if there's a path to something that is bigger in terms of, if you go deep in that particular game, are you going to play and have fun for 6 months and you look back and you're like, okay, I'm out now? Or is this something that becomes, I look at Axie Infinity and others and I'm like, okay, what's the end goal here? Like, is this something that 2 decades from now will matter, right? Or that if I'm buying and I kind of like stop playing for a bit, is it for active participants or can it be for passive investment? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
if I'm collecting passively.
I think the answer is it can be for both. Like when these assets now can be priced and there's there's bidders and there's sellers and there's markets that form around these specific assets, there are ways to passively play these economies and just like have broad exposure to the fact that they may continue to persist and grow in attention and could be valuable in the future. And there's also ways to make use out of those assets on an ongoing basis and like actually compete and play and try and derive like immediate short-term value and productivity out of those assets. And I think the really clever ecosystems will figure out a way to have multiple audiences interact with these things, such that, they're getting the flywheel going in multiple directions. And I think Wolf Game is kind of, from, the outside looking in, I don't own any of the assets. I'm still trying to like get up to speed on the excitement around it, but they're clearly resonating and they're doing something right over there.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, let's get into some of the crazier stuff that has happened since last week.
I got a question for you. What is this Mutant Ape Collars business?
It's the collars. You saw the collars, right?
We'll drop a link, dude, or throw it up. Okay. We need to talk about this.
All right. So essentially, it's the Mutant Hound collars is what it is technically. I wrote it wrong. It's created by some Bored Apes.
Okay.
And essentially this project is just something where, for me not being in all these Discords, and I feel like I always look for signal and signal hits me not just from one person, but when I hear multiple people that are the right types of people talking about a project, it always, is a little bell that goes off in my head. It says, pay attention. Now, that's not to say that hasn't happened and things have completely collapsed and gone to zero. So just to say that
do not
set the table. But yeah, exactly. But this is one of those projects where I've seen it talked about amongst some friends and some peers, and people were mentioning that there's these kind of new hounds that are being created out of these collars, and I think they're actually starting to mint as we speak. And be revealed here any second now.
Can I ask you a question about this?
Yeah.
So I'm looking at the art. I'm just kind of playing around. This is like, it's very clever. It's in the spirit of like the original Bored Apes art. Right. But you're telling me, and I'm just getting up to speed here, that this is a derivative collection created by a fan of the Bored Apes Yuga universe. And he's taking the lore and spinning it out in a new direction. And it has a team, an art team and a tech team that's working on building out a universe that's a derivative of the original. Is that right?
That's right. And that is my understanding, that it was a handful of Bored Apes that are big fans that came in and said, we're going to take this kind of same type of vein and go after it and launch our own project. Apparently it's an engineer that is out of, I want to say Israel. Go to his Twitter handle is Lior_Eth. and you'll find his kind of background on there as well. So, he's followed by 254 people that I follow, which is also another signal that I look at to see how many people are paying attention to somebody else's, work. I'm curious to see how many people you follow. So from everything I've heard, and I always ask people what do you know of this founder? What have they done prior? And everything has come back so far from this guy saying that there's no flags, which is good. And yeah, it's just one of those things where I saw the art. I liked it. I liked that they were rallying a lot of, ape holders to get excited about it. And it was just one of those things that, it's gone from 0.3 ETH to 1.7 ETH in a month. So it's been on the rise, but I think people are looking for another project to kind of get, they always are, but they're looking for another project to get excited about. And I like how this is kind of playing to that audience.
Yeah.
You know why I like it? Because I look at the Kennel Club, and honestly, Bored Apes are going to hate me for saying this. It's just bad art. It's not that good. It's not nearly as cool as how these look, I think, and they got the Mutant DAO around it. I don't know. This is a pretty cool. It's cool. A cool project, and it was just something that I've been seeing and multiple friends have talked about. So I wanted to pick up a couple, and so I
think it's cool. I actually kind of like the art. I think it's interesting. It's very much in the vein of the Bored Ape universe. So if you dig that style, this is very much in that spirit. The also the interesting thing too here, Kev, is I love the idea of communities picking up where the project has they're shifting the resources in other directions. And if this is that idea where they want to take on a piece of the lore and storytell and build a universe and assets around this thing that's very much under the umbrella of Bored Apes, but now they're able to kind of take this one piece of it in its own direction and commercialize it. It's kind of in the spirit of everything we've talked about around CCO and around, being able to, monetize in new directions to help proliferate the meme and to get people excited about the community. Now you run the risk because the Yuga Bored Ape stuff isn't CCO, that Yuga could put the hammer down on this if they don't like it. Or, you're running into kind of some, possible frictions there. And my hope is that these guys have talked with the Yuga team, and the Yuga team is anointed or blessed the project, and they're kind of watching closely to make sure that the IP doesn't run afoul from kind of the brand that they've built. But in general, this concept is really interesting to me, and I've loved seeing experiments like this, and I'm hoping to see more of this over the next couple years.
I don't see the same IP risk that you do, because it's called Mutant Hound collars. Obviously, Mutant is not a trademarkable term on its own. It's original art. It doesn't say anywhere that it's related. It's in the same vein of their art, but I don't think there would be a claim to be had here by Bored Apes on this particular project. You see something else that
you might be right, but I think there is the it's a good point. I need to think more about just exactly I've literally seen 3 photos of this thing and just saw Mutant Hound, so I need to kind of dig into the fact pattern a bit. So maybe there's enough differentiation here where they're skirting any possible copyright or trademark stuff. So it's a good point. I need to look into this a little bit more, but in general, this concept of commercializing derivatives that spin out of IP or original projects, I think is a very interesting trend line that we should keep watching.
Yeah. And it's crazy. Some of the rare collars, because they kind of did some of the scarcity at the collar level before they're doing the reveal, have sold for 90 ETH.
Wow.
Which is just insane.
That is, and
then you have to burn the collar to get a hound, and so that's how that function works, which is crazy.
Yeah, this is interesting. Let's keep an eye on this one, and maybe if you're if any of the Hound fans are out there, and is it Lior?
Yeah, Lior. That sounds right.
If you know Lior, tell him to get in touch with us. We'd love to pick his brain a bit. This is pretty cool.
Yeah. I'll reach out to him and see if we can get him on the show to talk about the project, because it does seem like a fun one. But you're right in that the thing that excites me most about CC0 and Moonbirds is honestly what we haven't done, which is get the the actual DAO up and running so that we can deputize and empower community members. Because we've seen, speaking of which, look at this thing right here, dude.
Oh my God. Is that a
Moonbirds playing card?
That's awesome.
A holographic Moonbirds playing card that one of our community members dropped by the office today. And this isn't to try and sell anything. They already sold out completely of these things.
Unreal.
They did a season 1. But it just goes to show we didn't even have to talk to them. That's the power of CC0. They just went and built the entire game, printed these, sold them out. And the guy was stoked. Like, he came by the office, super nice guy. And, he was just like, this was his little side hustle business,
awesome.
That he's building, and he's going to be doing it for other collections and all that. It's like fantastic. You've started a new business. That makes me really happy, Yeah. And so we want to see more of that. And I think that DAOs with capital will be able to empower folks to go out and build and take it in new directions. If someone wants to make baby Moonbirds or whatever the hell they want, like, let's go. Like, we'll support it. Like,
this is
anything that furthers the mission.
This is the beauty of Ethereum and these trust minimized blockchains, these ledgers, that anyone can walk up to this architecture and create value on top. And there's it's incredibly neutral architecture. Anyone can do anything they want on top of this stuff. And CCO is the same principles. It's, this is a platform by which anyone can walk up to and build new value on top. And so, spiritually and from like a practical perspective as well, it aligns with me so much seeing these kind of economic experiments being run, because I think some very interesting, valuable stuff is going to get built out using this stuff as a platform, whether it's Mutant Hounds and digital assets or trading card games or, whatever it may be. I think the beauty of CCO is that it acts very much like this credible, neutral layer, similar to why we've seen, the long tail of experiments get built on Ethereum. So it's very cool to see this stuff play out.
Speaking of people that are just really helping push the space forward and that are very much aligned with CC0, 6529. Have you seen the action that's been?
I've been watching that collection rip. And what's interesting is he got some very talented artists, I think, to do some of these mints. I'm a Grant Yoon fan. I think he was a Grail artist. He's exceptional at networking his collection and really giving back to the community, but then also being in conversation with the community around digital art. And I know his collection has done with the 6529 stuff has done well, among others, but it's been interesting to watch that one play out. I'm not a collector. I'm kind of watching from afar, but it is a very interesting collection. So kudos to 6529 and for folks that are geeked up about that one, because it's been kind of a ride there these last couple of weeks.
Yeah, he's been building quite it's really just an enterprise at this point, with the whole open metaverse plans that he has. And like, it's just the capital side of the business, which has been acquiring, some great NFTs. Like, it's been fun to watch. So it's cool stuff. It's really cool. So
definitely
something to pay attention to. Awesome. So you had a couple other projects that friendship bracelets, man.
I know. And what's crazy is, when I wrote this a few hours ago, the floor was at 0.5 ETH, and now we're up to, I think, 0.62 or 0.63. But just to kind of level set, these friendship bracelets are pretty cool. So we talked about it on the show when they came out. This was back in, I want to say it's November when we first brought it up on the show. But it was essentially a generative drop with an artist named Mac and Snowfro. It was a collaboration. And the idea was if you owned an Art Blocks piece, whether it was from the curated section or the playground section or the factory section, if you owned one at the snapshot date, you would be allowed to mint 2 friendship bracelets for free. And it was a generative
per wallet, not per piece.
Per wallet. You're correct.
Killed me.
It's true. Per wallet. And so, the idea was, it was a very awesome generative drop that was one, like a very cool piece of dynamic art, but then also inside of each, if you unbundle the art in the live view, you could actually see a way to create a real world friendship bracelet using string that you could just find at the hardware store. And so it was this tease of this idea between the digital and the physical by 2 really great generative artists. And it was like a thank you to people who had engaged with the Art Blocks ecosystem and they minted for free, and they continued to mint for free up until yesterday. And I mean, there has been 38,000 of these minted, and the floor price for an individual generative free bracelet is now 0.62 ETH. So it is, it's been wild. I mean, people really have flocked to this project. I think it's been an amazing way to see kind of the network effects of this space, kind of grab hold of something that the community agrees is valuable and rally around it. And I also think it's very interesting that the people who are holding this thing are a qualified audience of people who have ever actually interacted with the ecosystem. So it's almost like wasn't meant to be, but like a whitelist function that acts as, a gating tool to keep people to give people who, should probably want to hold this thing the ability to mint it. And so this community has rallied around this thing. It's been awesome and defying our expectations of how value should accrete in this space, seeing something with such a large size, 38,000, become so valuable in such a short amount of time. What are your thoughts on this, Kev?
I didn't have any strong feelings one way or the other. I thought it was clever in that it was, when you went to Marfa, tying it back to Marfa again, they were giving out little friendship bracelet kits so you could make your own friendship bracelets. It's fun. It's like Snowfro has this beautiful idea of being able to take something that is digital and somehow link it to the physical and multiple things that that he's starting to touch. So this is a representation of that. I didn't know till a couple of days ago that it had full on instructions that you could reveal by interacting with it, which is pretty cool.
It's pretty neat.
I will say I didn't think much of them, and I ended up purchasing a bunch not too long ago, maybe a month or two ago. And the reason I did so was because one of my employees, again with the Signal, said one simple phrase, and she's a little bit of a degen. And so she said, these are like my generation or something along these lines. I'm paraphrasing, but this is like my generation's Chromie Squiggle. Like I missed the Chromie Squiggle. This is like my chance,
Interesting.
And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like if you think this is your Chromie Squiggle, like these things are going to go to 5 ETH or whatever, right? So like I'm in. I picked up like 20 of them or something, and they were a lot cheaper than they are today.
Yeah.
But it was just hearing that. And this comes back to this. I'm sure you're kind of the same way in that if you want to play in this space, you have to realize that you can't have eyes and ears. You can't scale yourself, right? So you have to find trusted people that see around corners before you do, that can go out and bring intel back to you when you have these conversations, and you share. So we all kind of share, like, I think this is hot. This is why. This is the artist behind it. This is why I'm excited about it. It's doing a new, mechanic I've never seen before. Like we talk about all these things, right? And so you got to find that tribe or build that tribe. And, I think that's so important to collecting in this space. It's finding this stuff early. So, this is a fun one. It's a beautiful little piece. And if this is like a bigger, it's seen as a bigger Chromie Squiggle because of Eric's involvement, Snowfro's involvement in this thing. I don't know. Could keep going from here. Who knows though? We're also in a little bit of a bull run. We've kind of seen that for a few weeks now.
Yeah. Just a couple of things on that. I totally agree. Like we're all learning out here, Kev. We're all sharing ideas. We're all trying to figure out our own individual collecting styles and bounce ideas and feedback off of others and find, what it is that we want to hold and what we love and where we think value might accrete to our own collections. So I totally agree with your approach there. The only other thing I would add is just, we'll have to keep watching this phenomenon, but we're starting to see it with kind of open editions and projects that are launching on things like Manifold and Transient, where, collector or creators are creating these projects and doing these drops, and they're networking these open editions very quickly, 100 mints here, 500 mints here, 1,000 mints here. And it's having an interesting effect around bringing communities and community formation very quickly. And there's something to be said about the trading off that happens when you don't optimize for hyper scarcity and optimize for community building.
Yes.
Generative art is great at that. And so there is, a trend here to be paying attention to when we talk about 38,000 of these existing, and the fact that I think there's something like 14,000 unique holders of this collection at this point. I mean, that's a network, right? And when you think about the power of the internet and the power of means and the ability for information to move at the speed of light, the really cool thing to think about is that's 14,000 more people that can network an asset than just one single owner of a one of one, as an example. So I think a trend line that I just want to kind of bring into focus is, what does it mean to network these assets, whether it's through the holder count or through other products that you can build, or making things CCO, or doing different, like creating a surface area for these assets to get networked over time, such that hundreds of thousands, millions of people are interacting with single collections. I think that is an area of interest for me. So there'll be this is just one more data point in that grand trend line, I think.
Yeah, it's a really hard thing when I chat with artists. They want to figure out, how many do I produce of said mint? On the generative side, I've had conversations around this. On the one-of-one side, do I do additions? Do I not? And I think that, as an artist, a lot of trad art collectors and some of the gallery owners that I've met with, they will all tell you that an artist needs to have enough pieces out there for them to be, really establish themselves. They need to have enough of this network, this group of individuals that are super fans, right? And so I think when you do something like a giveaway combined with a way to make there be enough unique wallets that are collecting it, combined with just this idea that if you can get people to believe that you're not in it just for the money, but you're actually giving back to the community, it's a very powerful thing in that you will get enough momentum. And if you build a crowd of these super fans, they kind of carry the project for you and they become your best brand advocates, right? And so I think what we're seeing here with this kind of free giveaway, it was such a nice like little surprise for people, like, oh, this is awesome, I get to mint these things. And because they were framed as friendship bracelets, like I gave one to a friend of mine, and like they were very much about sharing, right? And bringing other people into the fold. Totally. And I know that was a very common use case for these, is like, who can I give one to introduce them to NFTs, And now you have all these other people that are becoming like fans of Art Blocks because this is their very first piece, which is pretty awesome. So it was a brilliant move. Snowfro is just, he's damn smart.
He's living a few years ahead of the rest of us.
He's also just so nice. I'm like, how can you be all those things? Like nice and smart. He's
the perfect human, dude. He's the perfect human.
We need to clone him. Let's yeah, it's crazy. We need to protect and save Snowflo from all things bad. So anyway, yeah, I'm a fan. How many of these bad boys do you own?
I own quite a bit.
Give me some numbers here. What's your bag?
I own over. I'll just say I own over 100, and I own less.
Oh my God,
less than 300. I like this project a lot, and so I will also say, Kevin, to your last point, I'm planning on gifting these and like using these as an onboarding tool for people who are interested about Web3, who have curiosity. And I think there's something really cool about like me being able to gift one of these to somebody that I meet in the future and explain to them what, provenance means as it relates to digital objects, what ownership over a digital object means, why this one is unique and how it was created procedurally on demand by me when I made it, or by whoever created it. I think that's a really powerful forcing function to get people to understand what's going on here. And as I have conversations with folks, like I want to use this as a tool to be able to do that in the same way that, Eric was giving away Chromie Squiggles, to anyone that he would meet for the first year, whether it was a collector or, a potential partner or a gallery or a museum.
He was so kind.
He was so kind. I mean, I
met him one time and he was like, here's a free squiggle. And I was like, dude, you're the nicest guy. Like,
exactly.
It's insane.
And I mean, that really, like that ability to have not just a verbal conversation, but then a proof of concept to be able to explain why this stuff is so powerful and to get people so resonant to like owning a digital object. That is something that is pretty killer. And so I want to be able to do that.
it's so mind-blowing when you think about Snowfro just gifting those things away, just randomly minting them for people. And I know every once in a while, I mean, he's coming up on the end of the collection because he only has a few hundred left, but every once in a while he still does it. And, it's changed, right? Like before, when he was gifting these away, I think when he minted mine, like it was a couple $100 worth of value. And you're like, man, thank you. That's awesome. Now he's dropping like a used Volkswagen on people when he just like
totally
gives them away. Like they're like,
it's pretty wild.
Like 20 grand or something or whatever, it's just like boom, car right on you just for
totally.
So Derek, so let me, just so I hear you correctly, proof of conference, someone walks up to you, they have a conversation, they get a free friendship bracelet from you. It's essentially what you're saying.
So, well, what would be really fun is like, I have so many random NFTs at this point. And like, I've thought about just like throwing them all in a hot wallet and just the first one that comes up in a conversation with someone, I'm like, here's an obit. Like you can have one of these CryptoPunk derivatives, or here is, this like random generative drop from Tezos, or here is something like there's something so cool about that. I'll throw some friendship bracelets in there for sure. And I definitely want to, long story short, we may see some stuff at Proof of Conference. So keep me honest there.
Proof of Conference, I'm working on some crazy, I want to have some crazy things happen there,
Talk to me.
From a drop standpoint, and just like I just want it to be so that, if you attend and you come out, there is great talks, like check, like got to have that, obviously. One track, so it's not too, all over the place. Great hangout spaces for people. And then just a shit ton of fantastic artists doing wild stuff. So that you can be like, I'm going to go over here to this area and watch this artist do this thing, which may be a live mint or may be a demonstration of something. And
Very cool.
So, all condensed within just a couple blocks, because we have this whole area that's a couple, I'd say probably 5 blocks large, and it's all, closed off. And so you can walk around and have these amazing experiences. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. But a lot of it has to do with like the planning I'm in the middle of right now. I just did today was, how do we provide the easiest and safest way for people to live mint and do those things at a conference like this, right?
Yes.
And so we're working on that, but we've got some killer ideas
Love it.
around that. So it's gonna be fun.
Love it. I got a topic.
All right.
Let's talk a little bit about BasedAF. And I'm close to this one. I've known Robin for a long time, super massive. But maybe some context is warranted here. We've, the first time I ever chatted with you on a podcast, Kev, I think I came on to the Proof Pod maybe about a year ago. And I talked about this idea as attention is the scarce resource. And I think I provided a couple of examples, but there is no better example than someone like what Mr. Beast has been able to do, which is this 24-year-old kid who has something like 125 million YouTube subscribers that are watching his every move. And he is monetizing that attention in a variety of different ways. And so it could be, opening up a hamburger store in every major city in the US and selling out hamburgers in a 24-hour period. It could be, the typical merch and gear, people want to like rep Beast stuff. It could be just, through normal YouTube ads or partnerships or whatever it may be, but he has figured out a way to create attention around himself and around his product, which is these videos, and monetize that over time. I think it came out at the end of last year that, he had buyers that wanted to buy his YouTube account and all of his associated properties for something like $1 billion. And about a few months ago, there was it leaked that he was raising a venture round that valued his entities at like $1.5 billion. And it's just a guy who's making videos, right? And so like he had figured out how to hack the attention of people and translate that into value, which I think is a phenomenal leverage in today's day and age. So, my view has been in a variety of ways, like create attention, and you can create attention in all sorts of different ways, but then have a compelling way by which to translate that attention into something like monetizable. That feels like a great playbook for delivering value consistently. My view is what Beast has done in the physical world is going to eventually translate to the digital world. And so this idea that the next Mr. Beast or the next top 25 YouTube streamer or Twitch streamer, they're going to continue to use physical objects by which to monetize, but more and more, like, the ability to engage with a digital audience in a digital community using digital objects just feels like it's collapsing into one. And so I've had this thesis for a long time that, more and more we're going to start to see these streamers, these YouTubers, these VTubers, these, people who create products on Twitch or have been able to network themselves or generate massive amounts of attention, start leaning into Web3 rails and the objects therein in order to interact and give communities the way to participate in
Right.
kind of what's being built. And that is kind of what, I've been talking with Robin Supermassive about this concept for years. So for context, actually, I reached out to Robin a few years ago because I was trying to hire him. He's awesome. He's been making video content for The Defiant, which is a Web3 publication here in our space. And his videos are just next level. Like, it's always been clear that, he's just had a talent for creating content and concept and video work. And he stayed with The Defiant and we became, friends. But eventually he told me about this idea that he wanted to create a Mr. Beast-like property for the metaverse. And it would be called BasedAF. And it would run the same playbook. It would be running challenge videos, unboxing, experiments, storytelling, concept, but it would all be pointed towards things like AR and VR and immersive environments. And that's essentially what just launched this last week. It was the first digital objects that are going to be part of that whole universe that he's created, which has been really fun to kind of watch play out. Now, so I will say that, I'm an investor in BasedAF, but this idea, I think, will be replicated by others. And I just want to flag this concept of the collapsing of attention and monetization into like a digital paradigm is coming to bear. And I'm excited for more and more experiments like this to play out, because I just think it's a super cool concept and one that we're just at the very bleeding edge of.
So I watched the video and I didn't fully understand, like, what is the playbook? Walk me through what he's going to be doing over the next 6 months. And then how is this different than, say, someone like a Mr. Beast? Like, he's going to be doing it for the virtual worlds, but what does that mean exactly? Like, what's the playbook look like? Yeah.
So I would say they built a virtual production studio. They have motion caption software. They have AR, VR, immersion technology, and also an understanding of how crypto and blockchains are playing into all of these things. And so as it relates to the vertical of, like, I just said a bunch of words, like, I'm going to call all of that like the metaverse, right? And so it could be VR, it could be AR, it could be, mocap, it could be all of these things. Like, to me, this is kind of like where we're headed in terms of just like immersion into technology around like the metaverse. Like, it's kind of all of these things bundled together. He wants to run like a content studio that's focused on teasing out how all of these technologies are coming together with Web3 and on their own. And he's going to do that by, running a very similar playbook to how the top YouTube streamers and providers of content have done it. And it's through things like talking about new technology that comes out in like an unboxing video, or it could be running a marathon in the metaverse, which is what he's doing this week, where he's putting on VR goggles and he's got the tracking treadmill, and he's going to actually straight up try and run a legit marathon on top of that thing.
That's interesting. And so what you're saying is, I like what you're saying. Let me, correct me if I'm wrong here. Yeah. So what he's doing is saying, okay, the metaverse is right around the corner. It's this new emergent like thing that is multiple, who knows who's going to win, but there's multiple ones coming and dropping over the next year and a half.
Yes.
I'm going to be the person that entertains, has fun, teaches, and goes out and is the digital first. It's almost like when TikTok launched and everyone's like, oh shit, I got to get a TikTok account. And like everyone rushes in. Like, we've had this with the influencers, right? Where it used to be Vine and then it was Instagram. And then it was like, there would be these services, and if they were hot and had enough stickiness to them, creators would rush in just to see, is there anything here? And if the platform performs, it becomes massive, and they're stars in that platform. So is this kind of an idea where he's coming in to say, okay, let me go and and actually be first here.
You've totally got
make a name for myself.
You've totally got it. And it's a content studio. So he's got this huge team at this point. I say huge, it's probably about 10 people. They've built out this amazing virtual production studio. They've got all the hardware and they are just playing around. And that's what BasedAF is. They've got, a storytelling concept around these based heads and the trash land and this universe that they've created. That will certainly be a component of BasedAF. But the broad bucket is they want to tinker, experiment, do crazy stuff around all of how they think the metaverse is coming out, completely agnostic to whether that's going to be in something like The Other Side, or it's going to be in something like Mona, or it's going to be in something like Fortnite, or it's going to be AR or VR, or it's going to be with motion capture, live streaming. They want to do it all, and they want to test it all, and they want to have fun doing it. And so it gets back to this idea of if you can properly, run the same playbook as we've seen over the last 10 years around generating attention around this type of content and point it specifically to, the intersection of Web3 and crypto and blockchains, and do it in a way that gives ownership over digital objects to a community, I think there's some really interesting ingredients when put together could be quite compelling. So
yeah, that's awesome.
It'll be fun to kind of watch this one play out.
Yeah, it's very cool. I love these, who was very good at this was Gary Vee. He used to hit me up all the time whenever there was a new platform. He'd be like, Kev, you got to get on here, man. This is gonna blow
which
up,
one did he tell you about that? Or that?
We were playing around, like there's old videos of Gary and I, maybe like I don't know, maybe 15 years ago, where we were playing around with it was the stuff that was like Twitter was taking off, but then there was like some bolt-on video platforms. And so we tried a few of them. Springboard was one, a Q&A platform we were using for a while. And it would just be like, anytime there was like a Vine or anything else would drop, it'd be like, oh, this is the one. Let's rush in, and just see if there's anything here. So I know that game well, but I haven't seen anyone do it in this world, which is pretty cool.
It is pretty cool. And there is some barrier because some of the stuff is pretty expensive. And one of the reasons why we haven't seen mainstream adoption around the metaverse, it's it is expensive to buy $1,500 Apple VR goggles. But I will say that there is a structural first mover advantage to being the person known to play with this stuff and geek out on this stuff and tell stories around this stuff. And I think that's the vision here, and it'll be fun to kind of watch it play out.
Yeah, that's awesome. Very cool. Let's talk about cold storage delegation.
Yes, I know this was a little.
No, I'm curious to know what this is all about, because Figgy hit me up a while ago when they were building this tech, and then Yuga acquired them.
Yes.
And I think that's what this is. Is that right?
It is. So yesterday, so Bored Apes is they've got some stuff that they're planning. I think there's the Jimmy the Trial thing, or the trial of Jimmy the Ape is being told right now. I think they're on the third or fourth episode of that story. And there's a mint coming up, and there has been a problem for, let's call it the last year and a half, around people who have these expensive Bored Apes and these expensive Mutant Apes and these assets being in cold storage, right? So having to use a ledger in order to interact with moving the asset or asserting control over the asset or Web3 authing in, and exposing the contents of everything in that cold wallet to the universe of the contracts that they're interacting with. And we've seen time and time again, for better or for worse, that, if you hold, a sizable sum of assets in your cold wallet, you don't necessarily want to continue to expose that wallet with all of the contracts that could be out there in the universe of Ethereum or Solana or Avalanche or whatever it may be. And so there's been this growing desire by which to disaggregate the ownership rights you have that exists in your cold wallet with the ability to actually mint from a new contract based on an airdrop or some new right that you get. And I think this is the product that you're describing. It's called Warm.xyz, and it was part of WeKnew, and I think that's sold to Bored Apes. There's a second one that's growing pretty quickly. They've got $200 million in total value locked inside the registry called delegate.cash. They're the same concept. It's this concept that we need as an industry to get more sophisticated around how we can exercise our ownership over these assets without subjecting the entirety of our, sovereign wallet to a bad contract. And so yesterday, this was Art Blocks did this first with friendship bracelets. So they incorporated Delegate Cash. So if you had an Art Blocks piece in your wallet and you were part of this registry, you had signed up and bestowed the rights associated with your cold wallet to a random hot wallet, you could choose whatever one you wanted. You could just mint from your hot wallet on the Art Blocks platform and mint your 2 friendship bracelets, even if you didn't have anything in the wallet you were minting from, right? Or the public address that you were minting from. And so Bored took a cue and is now doing this too, which I think is great because we continue to see these hacks happen in the space, which to me is throttling the ability for this space to get, serious. And I just structurally love seeing emphasis and effort made towards stuff like this because we just need to grow up and we can't be, exposing everything that we own to everything new that we interact with, just because we want to access a new airdrop or just because we want to access some access control right that we're prevented from in wallets that we don't have the ownership in. And so these delegation services are a way to take a step in that right direction and to start allowing the space to build around these standards so that we can prevent the next big hack or the next big, trick or whatever it may be in one of these discords or on Twitter or whatever, wherever, these things are happening.
Yeah. Yeah. This is, it's a concept that I think a lot of people have talked about, and I know Delegate Cash is pretty awesome. We didn't have a chance to play with the one that we knew had created, but I love this idea of there being a pointer to prove ownership, and say this is actually my wallet over here. Let me sign this one, and we're good to go. Right? Exactly. That's just so important. This is certainly something I could see us supporting for future mints as well. There's no reason you should have your hot wallet ready to go. In fact, we added recently at Proof.xyz just the ability to connect multiple wallets. So if you log in and create an account, you can tie in authentication for 5 different Ethereum wallets if you wanted, and a Twitter account and whatever. And obviously, we can't touch any of those assets, but we've proven now that you hold and own those assets. Yeah. So if it's for simple things like claiming a reward and having something shipped to you, you don't have to pull out your hot wallet, right? That's fine. So that's an easy one to do. And then obviously, if you need to move assets, it's a whole nother matter. But we don't want people to be interacting with their cold wallets or their cold storage or having to pull out their ledger every single time they want to do a basic, profile update or something, right?
It's also just terrible UX. It's take away the security stuff for a minute. It's that you have to lug around this piece of hardware every time you want to do something interesting in this space is, it can be, I think relaxing some of those frictions will just create a design space for better applications, better UX to get created, which I'm very much in favor of.
I'm optimistic that this can happen at the hardware level. I hope that Ledger fixes this problem and MetaMask. It can happen at the software level as well. Yeah. We need code that actually says in your face, this is going to be transferred out. And point and show me the NFT that's going to be transferred, right? That is probably doable, And so we'll see. I feel like it should be there should be a layer of software protection there from some of these wallets that I just haven't seen yet. So I know that's something that every time I talk to the folks at Ledger, they're hard at work on this.
I get it.
This is a huge problem. Huge problem. They want to support.
Totally. I'm keeping a close eye on the stuff that Ledger's doing. They've really proven that Ian over there is so sharp, but they've proven that they get what great UX looks like and they know where they need to go and they're making every effort to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Should we keep going? I think we've got one left. One more story.
Yeah, so
Doodles.
This one, we don't have to talk about this one. I think it's cool. It's it kind of partners nicely with some of the stuff that we talked about last week. And I saw that Sam had posted it, which I thought was great. The idea is that Shopify, which I think if folks aren't familiar with, it's essentially a self-serve storefront that millions of people use to, sell their wares e-commerce style to a consuming public. And they've grown very quickly over the last decade. They're an awesome tech company. And they provide, back-end analytics and the tools needed to spin up a storefront very quickly for consumer goods. So they've certainly, been kind of like a Web 2 success story. And I think for a lot of folks, they're looking to see how projects like Shopify start taking a point of view on Web 3. And one way is by what Shopify just announced yesterday, and this is seen in Sam's post, is they're launching a token-gated option where merchants can mint and sell NFTs and create access control around those NFTs for future services and products, whether it's merch or downstream events or whatever it may be. And so a little bit more modularity in terms of the types of things that can now be sold through Shopify that are specifically focused on kind of Web3 and Web3 access control, which was pretty interesting.
I think it's a huge announcement, and in that Shopify is, top tier, massive e-commerce company. And just the idea that they're saying, okay, token-gated communities are important enough that we're going to build this in at the actual, protocol level is huge. Like that, the fact that they're adding in token-gated community support is amazing. So I have yet to play with the product yet, but there's I don't know. I could see Shopify is so customizable. I've seen some massive e-commerce sites that run on Shopify, and you would never know it, And so I can imagine this will just be powering a lot of the physical commerce that is tied to Web3.
Totally.
I think it was. I had a chat with the CEO of Shopify, like a Zoom call with him maybe 8 months ago, and I knew this was coming just because he was talking about buying and holding punks and fidenzas and things like that. Like he's like hardcore in the space as well. So we were just chatting about, what NFTs were hot and what we were excited about at the time. And I just, this is a massive publicly traded company that is basically, saying they're all in on Web3, which is great.
Yeah. Love to see it. And I think, dovetails really nicely with the conversation we had last week, where like, on the corporate side, it feels like these moves are they're awesome. Like it's going to be trickle flood. Everyone eventually, like this will be table stakes. We're going to see everyone realize like the power of being able to build access control around digital objects for e-commerce. Like that is obviously understood by Shopify, and I think it will be understood by others. I also think like the real 0 to 1 innovations are going to come elsewhere. And so I just want to see everything. I want to see it all. I want to see Web 2 incorporating Web 3 standards. I want to see early stage, founders really tinkering at the edges of what can actually be created with this design space. But philosophically, just love that this is happening and super excited to see it announced.
Yeah, we're in the same boat in that I think Web 2 entering into Web 3 is nothing but a good thing for the industry.
Agreed.
Number one, they have the eyeballs that we need in Web 3. Like they're holding on to them.
Totally.
And so the more that they can build into their app and products and expose their audiences to Web3, the better. And then lastly, they're just better at building consumer products.
It's true.
Like they
I hate
know
to admit
how to do it,
but it is so true, dude. They are you're to compete at a high level in Web 2 is like takes a very specific set of skills and understanding and intelligence to like down to why people make single clicks during an experience. And you just don't see that type of fine-tuned building in Web3 yet, because I think people are painting with broad brushstrokes, which I think is great because like everyone's trying to figure it out. But to your point, Kevin, it's like the expertise from a UI UX perspective coming out of folks coming out of Web 2 or some of these Web 2 companies is just often it's light years ahead of what we're seeing in Web 3.
Yeah, I believe the best product companies in Web 3 over the long term are going to leverage Web 2, especially on the design and kind of usability side, to really come in and hopefully help turn what can be at times very geeky and very hard to understand terminology and functionality and make it consumable, right? Like the fact that we even had a conversation today about, dynamic pointers of warm and cold and hot wallets and what the difference is between those. Like, you lost everyone in the world
Totally.
except for, the 200,000 people that are super excited about Web3 right now. It's like, that can't be the path forward to the masses. Like, no one is sitting there, at the bus stop figuring out the warm wallets. Like, wait, like this is not, we can do better. So I'm excited.
Well, Kev, another awesome episode in the books, dude.
Yeah, this has been great, dude. And I love it. And I promise I will hit you up ahead of time so that we're not wearing matching beanies, because I have the matching beanie.
There we go, dude.
That was just ridiculous.
There we go. Well, someone will take a screen grab and post it on Twitter for us. And
we avoided that catastrophe. That was close. Awesome. All right, brother. Talk soon.
All right, man. Take it easy.
All right, that is it for this episode. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you would like to help us out, head on over to proof.xyz and click on the reviews button at the very top and leave us a 5-star review. Thanks so much. Take care.